What's up, conscious creators? It's Alex here, helping you with conscious personal growth and deepening our awareness so we can create more of what we want in our lives and have a positive impact on the world. Now, this video is called How to Stop Absorbing Other People's Negative Energy. Do you feel like sometimes you're absorbing other people's negative energy, or do you feel like negative people are having a negative influence on you, like you're taking what they say on board and it's dragging you down? Or perhaps you're with a certain group of friends or certain family members who just seem to be on a downer a lot of the time and it brings you down. Well, let me share with you what's helped me so that maybe it can help you, because I used to be someone that took on board a lot more of people's negative energy than I do now. I used to listen to the opinions of other people way too much and take them on board way too much. Now, there's constructive listening to other people's opinions when you see that it's genuine, good-intentioned, constructive feedback. And then there's listening to people who are just putting a downer on what you're doing because they simply don't believe in it, or they don't understand it, or they need to try and bring you down a peg in order to boost their sense of self. And I used to take it all a bit too seriously, right? And I think all of us have done this at some point in our life, or we've been around people that we feel are close friends. We used to maybe have a bit of a different relationship with them, and yet recently it feels like they're just on a downer all the time. Maybe on a downer about themselves or even about us. And it's equally hard when it involves family members, because family members are not people that you just want to exile from your life. And I know a lot of people out there struggle with family members that they feel are negative or acting unconsciously. Now, a lot of videos that I've seen on this, they share a lot of great tips, but I feel like a lot of them are quite surface level. What I'm going to do in this video is start with some practical surface level tips that you can implement straight away. But what I really want to do is get to the heart of the problem. I really want to get to the root of what causes us to be affected by other people's negativity and unconsciousness and unconscious behavior, and transcend that altogether. So the first thing that you can do is practically bring a sense of lightness and jokiness to the situation. You know, rise above it. I know it sounds simple or obvious to say, but there's great power in sometimes just having a bit of self-reflection and think, no, I'm not going to get dragged into this. This person doesn't necessarily have to have this impact on how I feel internally. I set how I feel internally, and I want to feel happy in this situation. I want to feel like there's lightness and humor to this interaction, and just take it on board to inject that into the conversation and to act with more lightness and jokiness and humor and joy. And often what you'll find is that these people will be affected by it, and they may end up mirroring you a little bit and making the interaction a lot more pleasant, a lot more overall pleasant. Now, there are some people that are just determined to be negative and they're not going to move. And there are situations in which, we just need to remove ourselves from the situation. Sometimes someone is just completely addicted to being negative, completely addicted to negative thoughts and behaviors, and are a general downer all the time, or perhaps they're always being a downer on you and criticizing you for no constructive reason, or perhaps they're even being borderline abusive or even abusive. And especially in these latter situations, sometimes you just have to make the decision to remove yourself from a situation, either temporarily or permanently. So it's up to you to assess the situation and think, is this person just in a bad mood and I can come back later to a better mood? Or is this person displaying a pattern that no matter how consciously I act, I can't seem to break? But with that being said, a lot of the time we can actually use unconscious people to awaken ourselves. Now, this is where the real power comes in, because yes, we can just cut people out of our lives. We can say, this person's negative, this person's acting unconscious, and that's it. I'm going to exile them from my social circle. And whilst that may be useful, and whilst that may be the best thing to do, the most productive thing to do, and the best thing to do for your well-being in some situations, especially when, the person's exhibiting behavioral patterns that don't seem to be broken by any effort or any level of presence. But it's getting to that level of presence in the first place. It's being able to be in the present moment around them and using these situations for our own personal awakening. Now, what do I mean by that? Awakening, in a simple definition, is awakening from the dream of thought. The obsession that we have with repetitive thinking and identification with a sense of self in the mind, which fuels most of our psychological suffering. Now, what do I mean by this? I mean that many of us are walking around obsessively and repetitively thinking, and we also have this sense of self in the thinking mind, in the story narrative that we identify to. So the simplest way to explain this is that, you can see it in yourself and in other people. We tell stories about the past and tell stories about the future, which have a me in there, which have an I in there. This person did this to me. I was offended. I can't believe this happened. I was a victim to this situation. Now, many of this might be true on a practical level, remembering past events, or you're projecting into the future. But we identify with this sense of self, which causes so much psychological suffering. Because so much of the thoughts are negative or repetitive. This sense of self that we identify with often feels the need to be defensive, to feel superior, to feel right, to take up mental positions and be right in those mental positions. And we get addicted to having our attention kind of fixated on this sense of self. And when, so-called negative people come in and we feel like they're attacking that sense of self with their negativity, that's where a lot of the suffering comes in. That's where most of the suffering comes in. Because all of a sudden now it's this person doing something to me. This person shouldn't have said this thing about me. This person shouldn't be saying these comments about me. Now, these things may be true, but when we think these things and we identify with them, we experience the negative emotions associated with those thoughts. Now, it's possible to have those thoughts present, but realize that we're the space that contains them, rather than the thoughts being the root of our being. Our true self is awareness, and thoughts arise within awareness. just like everything else arises within our awareness. And we learn not to take all our thoughts so seriously and continuously see a sense of self in them that needs validation, that feels defensive, that feels the need to be superior, that feels the need to be right. You see? We can recognize that people only act to the level of awareness that they have at that point in time. They are subject to their conditioning. They may well have had many negative influences themselves, which is leading them or catalyzing this negative behavioral patterns they're exhibiting now. So it's important to approach these situations with a sense of compassion. It's very, very easy to feel like a victim in these situations. And sometimes you are a victim on a practical level. If someone's being abusive, you're a victim to their abuse. But what we don't want to be a victim to is repetitive thoughts in our mind about the situation which produces negative emotions within us. So when you're in these situations with negative people, it's realizing that sometimes it's just a whirlwind of ego around you. The other person is playing their role, playing this persona out, playing their past conditioning and their negative habits. It's not who they are at their deepest level. You know, we can see this in ourselves. There's sometimes that even the most conscious of us can get a little bit irritated, a little bit angry, or exhibit some negativity. And we can see what's happened there. We've become identified with this mental narrative, this mind stream. We've become defensive, we've become reactionary. And people that are consistently negative are just acting this out in a more extreme form. But when you are challenged by these situations, it can actually be a catalyst to your own growth and your own awakening. Because you can realize it's just the universe coming at you in a funny way, you know? It's just people being lost in their own conditioning. And as you bring presence and awareness to the situation, as you realize that you're not your thoughts, that thoughts aren't the root of your being, but you are the awareness that thoughts arise within, that can promote, even if just, you know, the first signs of awakening within them. It can promote presence within them. Now, some people, it's not going to affect at all because they're so identified with these negative stories that they're acting out, and it feels like it's almost impenetrable. Sometimes that's the case, but a lot of the time, bringing presence and awareness to this situation can promote presence, awareness in the other person. So this is where the true power comes in, because you do not have to absorb other people's negative energy, in the sense that their negative energy is made up of, you know, a bunch of behaviors and things that they're saying that appear within your awareness. But they don't necessarily have to harm, modify, or limit what you essentially are at the deepest level. They appear and then they disappear. But there's a foundation of peace and stillness in the presence and awareness within you that can be undisturbed by the things that appear in it, including the negative, unconscious people. So it can promote the awakening within you. It can promote a raising of consciousness within you when you see these challenges with other people as an opportunity to awaken. When you approach the other person, or at least the situation, with compassion, having a little understanding that people are acting out their negative conditioning and are only acting to the level of awareness that they have at that point in time. And then you will stop absorbing other people's negative energy. So you can create more of what you want in your life and have a positive impact on the world, because that's what we're all about on this channel. So if you liked this video, please give it a like, and of course don't forget to subscribe and hit that notifications bell so you don't miss out on any new videos helping you with conscious personal growth. Peace.